Okay, so we're recording, and I'm thrilled today to have Sue Spencer on the expert interview for Big Fit Girl today, who is also known as BeastMode Grandma. That's how I found you. That's how I've gotten to know you, and I love that name that you use for was formerly your Instagram title, and it's also kind of attached to your business still. But I love that because I think it really can sometimes beast mode and grandma, like those words kind of aren't often met together, and it really smashes stereotypes. So I love that. So Sue Spencer is also the founder of Lift You Up Coaching, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And you're a healthy advocate for aging, and public speaker, and a Olympic weightlifter at the age of 65. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Soon to be 66.
66 coming up. Okay, so there's so much I want to talk to you about because as you know, we've talked over a couple of years now about what I do and what you do, and I think it's very similar what we do. We're smashing the stigma and stereotypes of what it means to be a female athlete, whether it be about age, about size, about color. It's really about what's being pushed out there in the media masses and how we're defying that in our own game, and what we're seeing really truly in the visual landscape that's out there, not just in the media. So I was so inspired by your story, just because you are doing that so incredibly. And so I want you to just tell the listeners how this all began. Like, it seemed like from what I read on your website and what I've talked to you, there was a crossroad for you. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I guess it really kind of started. So I will be 66 in April. And when I was about 58 and a half, my daughter was pregnant with my grandson. And I just suddenly thought, oh my God, in 18 months, I'm going to be 60. Like, what on earth does that mean to me? And I just really had been overweight for a long time, and not that is the big issue. The big issue is that I had been overweight and unhealthy for a long time. And I suddenly thought, I've just got to do something. And so my first thought was, well, I need to just start exercising in some way, shape, or form. So I decided I would join a gym that was between my house and my work. And I would go in and dedicate the next 18 months to doing something about getting fit, getting healthy, just changing my lifestyle. And really no idea. I don't know what I thought I was going to do over that 18 months. And many of my friends said, oh, we've heard that before. But I went in and I just took mainly the mindset that I would say yes to any opportunity that came up in the gym and in other ways in my life. And also that I would say, whatever the possibilities were that could come from that, and just be open to it. And so when I first started at the gym, the guy's showing me around and I'm like, oh, I don't do certain things. And he said, oh, well, I have somebody that can help you with that. So I worked with somebody to help me with my, because I had sort of crunchy stuff in my knees, fix that all up with gait analysis and stuff like that. And I'd bought like a package of 10 sessions in order for him to work with me. And I had about 4 left. So he said, well, I'll find a personal trainer to connect you with. So I was trained with, or connected with this fellow named Paul Marlowe, who goes by Tall Paul. And he's 6'7", I'm 5'2". So that was kind of an interesting combo. But so I thought, well, okay, well, I'll use these 4 sessions and see what I get out of it. And immediately I realized that, number one, when you're working with a personal trainer and they tell you to do something and you don't do it quite right, they're going to correct you and help you. And if you don't do it right again, they're still going to correct you and help you. And so I thought, this is kind of a no-brainer. And I really also decided that, I was going to just take advantage of it. And I thought, you know, like I had no intention of working with a personal trainer, but this was what I needed to do. So it was an opportunity that was there, and I decided I was going to say yes, but I had to fiddle around with a bit of financing in order to do it. But to me, it was worth it for me to be on this journey of change. And I was very fortunate that the first trainer I used, I connected with immediately. I trusted him immediately that he wasn't going to let me hurt myself. And his way of training was functional fitness and strength training. So doing things that you could use in your daily life. So squats, everybody has to sit on a toilet, you know, sit on a chair and stand up again. So just some basic stuff like that. And then I really sort of discovered that I was pretty strong. And over the course of time, I sort of got into the routine of going to the gym. And then he said, well, okay, now you need to look at the way you eat and what you're eating, and you make some adjustments. And so he gave me some suggestions about, you know, like maybe eating 5 times a day, smaller meals, things like that. But he wasn't too worried about telling me what I should be eating. He said, find what works for you. And I think that's a real key message in people changing their lifestyle, is that you have to find what works for you. So I did. I changed up what I was eating. I was much more conscious of the quality of the food that I was consuming. And I like to call it mindful eating, so that when I decided that I was going to have something that probably wasn't the best for me, I made that conscious decision that I was okay with that, and it wasn't going to be, you know, it wasn't a cheat meal or anything like that. It was just something that I've chosen for that day. So over the course of about a year, I lost close to 100 pounds. I'm not really sure how much, because I really gained so much muscle, and muscle weighs a lot. So I'm really not sure what that was. But I changed my physique for sure, and I changed my strength. I changed my bone density, which is huge for someone who's older. And then he kind of said, well, you need a new goal now, because you need something to keep you moving along. And so I always like to think big. So I looked at what was available, and I saw, World Masters Games, which is all sports. But I was looking specifically for powerlifting, because I had been doing squats and deadlifts, and they didn't have that, but they had Olympic lifting. So I very naively went in and said, I want to learn how to do Olympic lifting and go to the 2017 World Masters Games.
That's
incredible.
He
said, okay, he'd done it in college and he knew how to teach me. So we worked on that. And I ended up going to the World Masters Games, and I got a gold medal. I have to qualify that.
I got a gold medal.
I have to qualify that with the fact that there are a certain number of women that are my age that do Olympic lifting, but not a huge amount. And so it's divided by 5-year increments of age, as well as by weight classes. So the likelihood of being 65 or even 60 at that point, it was 62 or so, you are possibly competing against yourself. So while it's wonderful to get a medal, I always look at it from what I've achieved and what I can achieve against people who have come before me. So I'm always sort of looking at what the world record is and how far off I am from that, and what I have to work at to just improve every time I lift and improve my techniques and stuff like that. So I just want
to back up for a second though, before we talk further about that, because I feel like when people align with the right people, these kind of situations can happen, where you are beckoned into your untapped potential by working, like you did all that. But Tall Paul also, like, I want to know, was there a specific quality about this trainer that you think played a part in helping usher you to have to look at the potential that was already there? Because I hear a lot of stories about people going into gyms and not being connected with the right trainers. And then what that tends to do is it tends to create a negative experience for them that they kind of wash forward the fitness industry with. And rightly so. It is hard to find a good trainer, but is there certain qualities about Tall Paul that you think people should look for?
Well, so definitely somebody that, you know, I guess gets you. We were compatible personality-wise. He's a pretty laid-back guy. He and I'm reasonably laid back, although finding that I'm incredibly driven as well, which I didn't really, that was sort of, other people have seen it, but I didn't really see that about myself. But I think that, you know, I said to him once, you know, if you'd made me do this fit test where I was jumping up and down and doing all this stuff, I would have been out there, there so fast. I think being sensitive to the fact that somebody that's coming into the gym for the first time that has not had any experience in doing a lot of different things, that you need to be sensitive to, especially somebody who's a little bit older that's made that decision to come in, that you're tailoring things that they would be willing to try, and just making them feel confident in not sending them so far out of their comfort zone and walking out of that gym exhausted because they've been doing jumping jacks or something like that. And just finding things that work in certainly strength training for most women is so important, but it's also something that allows you to, if you haven't been active before, it allows you to be confident in your abilities as that grows, you know, as you're capable of doing a little bit more and a little bit more. Honestly, I'm usually a pretty good at figuring out what people are like and getting the vibe of them. And one of the things with him, he's a great big huge tall guy who's super fit and does modeling and acting and things like that. You would think, oh my God, like they're going to be so judgmental, whatever. I never felt that. I always felt very, very comfortable that this person was here to help me. And I think that that's what you have to look for in the people that you're trying to connect with in the gym, whether it's other people that you talk to or a personal trainer. You have to be confident in that about them. And that shows up in various ways, obviously.
I think also from the sounds of what you're saying about this particular trainer is that he didn't have any ceilings on your potential. Like whatever you went to him with, he was like, okay, like let's navigate that together. Like he hadn't done the lifting since college or whatnot. But like, you know, I think sometimes people impose their own limited thinking on others. And I think it's really cool that no matter what you came to him with, and I hope he can watch this interview because I think we need to hear more about more trainers like this, that no matter what people come to you with, even if your own thinking is like, I don't know about that, to really go with it and keep an open mind, as you were saying in the beginning. Like you went in there with the open mind of whatever potential and possibility this could bring to you, and look at what it brought. And also, oh, go ahead. You go ahead.
I was just going to say also, you know, finding that trainer that will look at you and you're doing, you know, 5 reps of 25 pounds, but you're not really tired at the end of that. Well, let's bump it up and keep going until you're, you know, like being aware of what your capabilities are and seeing that you can do more and giving you that gift of trying that. Yeah. And, you know, if it's too much, it's too much and you move back. But just, you know, as you said, like trying to look at that person and allow them to, you know, sky's the limit, because really the sky is the limit of what you can achieve. It's as much as your mind will let you, but as well as what you physically will be willing to try. You know,
And
and
I think, yeah, no, I definitely agree with you there. And I think often our society carries bias without even knowing it. And it's good to kind of check your own bias when you see an older person. What are your thoughts about them? What, like, have you already decided about, oh, they won't be able to, or I better be careful? Or, I mean, if you go to the Ironman circuit, a lot of people doing that race, because they have the time, they're in retirement, they're older, they're out there killing it. So we can't judge somebody based on their age. You just can't. And but I think there's bias in our society around it.
Oh, absolutely. And by their age, but also by what they happen to look like.
Yeah.
Super skinny, heavy, in between, it doesn't matter. Like, people have that bias. And I know when I was in the gym to begin with, I just took the attitude of every day is a new day. Every day is an improvement on what I was yesterday, or the same, but usually an improvement. And people that were in that gym, my attitude was, you have no idea where I came from, where I am right now, and where I'm going. And so it doesn't matter to me. And the surprising thing that we find when we're a little bit nervous about going into the being judged is the fact that when people see you in there every day working hard, no matter what you're doing, whether you're lifting a 5-pound weight or a 50-pound weight, they see you doing it on a regular basis, and people admire that. And they're willing to help you. If you ask them a question about something, yeah, of course they'll help you, because they see that you're working hard and trying to make a change or an improvement in what you're capable of doing. So I really have found that. On the other hand, when I've done some boot camps, I have gone in and had people sort of look at me like, oh God, what's she gonna do? Like, why is she even here? And then I do something and they're like, oh, okay. Yeah. I had a funny experience with someone who I've connected with on Instagram since. We were doing deadlifts, and I was partnered with her, and it was near the end. We were going to try and go for our max, and she said, oh, I'll let you go first because I actually do, you know, a certain amount that was like about 200 pounds. And I said, well, actually, I do, like, at that point it was doing like about 280 pounds. So I said, I'll let you go first.
No, please, you go first.
Yeah. So I was actually at that was a few years ago, and I actually did 290 pounds, and it was the most of anybody, no matter what age they were in that gym. So it was kind of funny that, you know, like, people just have that preconceived notion, no matter what. And all you have to do is set them, you know, straight on who you are and what you do, and then that changes.
Yeah. And I'm sure that was so inspiring for people around to see, like, and you're really modest about it too. Like, just, no, you go first. Do you see, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but do you see ageism in the world of fitness and sport in general, but in particularly the media message?
Yes, absolutely. I think because I'm excuse me, I'm working in a field where there's masters. It's not so prevalent because everybody is at least 35 years old and up, and most of the people that I compete around the same time as are probably 55 and up. And we all are inspiring to each other. But I think that, you know, just this whole thing of, you know, right now, the elderly with the virus that's going on. Well, what is our elderly? Well, 60 is, by most accounts, for most people, is not actually elderly. Neither is 65 or 70. But that's the media message, and it's always somebody sitting in a chair with a blanket on their lap, or a rocking chair, or a cane, or things like that. So I feel that it's changing, particularly in the case of like CrossFit. There's so many more people that are 55 plus that are competing and are incredibly athletic, that it is slowly changing. But yeah, certainly the media just always is a challenge for, you know, what is actually age, or you know, you can be 25 and incapable of doing stuff, never mind 65 or 75.
So just like with sizeism and the ageism, I feel like when people of size are invisible in our media message, particularly attached to anything positive related to health and fitness, it creates this message of the unknown, right? So same with ageism, like how would a 65-year-old person or a 75-year-old person or an 80-year-old person even know that Olympic weightlifting was something that they could do? Because where would they see it? Where would they acknowledge that, you know, I think we look to imagery and messaging out in the visual landscape to kind of reflect like our own possibilities. And I think that you're doing a great job of that for people to go, hey, wait a second, it isn't over for me. I can do this. But aside from people like you, where would they see it? And I think it really creates barriers for people, or it doesn't even show them possibility.
Yes, and you know, it's true. Like, I mean, I would never have even thought about, you know, for instance, World Masters Games if my brother-in-law hadn't competed in the Edmonton Games and I knew of its existence. You wouldn't necessarily know that kind of thing. I think, as I said, CrossFit really has helped bring that sort of to light a little bit more. And I can see a bit of a shift in some of the media marketing of larger size models, as well as all different ages of models. But it really is a tough go for people to find out, you know, if you're not into yoga or CrossFit, where would you find out that information if you were really not, you know, not able to, you know, know somebody, for instance, that does it? Yeah. I'm quite amazed with my Instagram, which was BeastMode Grandma. Now I flipped it to Lift You Up Coaching. I've kept the BeastMode Grandma name because it's such a cool name.
Awesome.
I don't want to give it up because I know somebody will just snag it. But yeah, it's interesting to me the number of women who I've connected with who are doing all different sports and maybe weren't doing sports, but now are doing sports. Yeah. You know, just through, you know, like the same, you know, with your Instagram and Facebook and everything, like just seeing somebody, even if you get it through a clip of somebody else's Facebook or something, all of a sudden, oh, wow, look at this. And I'm finding in the last probably 3 or 4 months, there's so many more Facebook pages that are related to women who are older or aging and that are doing some kind of fitness. So I'm looking at that as a very positive thing for sure. I'm finding much more of that and connecting with a lot more people that way.
Yeah, I think even I could be talking out of turn here, but didn't Sports Illustrated just have an older model in their swimsuit? Like, I think 50 plus, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. One of the magazines, I think, did for sure.
Yeah.
And I find also in the UK, they're much more proactive with that kind of thing, with anti-ageism. And there's a woman named Alex Rotas who is a photographer, and she's just done a whole series on Masters athletes that is pretty cool. Fantastic.
Sorry, what's her name again?
Alex Rotas.
Okay.
Rotas, I think.
I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, I hope that she at some point comes to North America because there's so many inspiring women here as well, but mainly track that she's done, but yeah, really cool. And so there is a little bit more like that. And some of the women who are sort of in the media, there's a fellow that's done a lot of photography of really interestingly eclectic seniors in New York is where he mainly has filmed them, but like these people that are so unique and, well, probably not unique. We think they're unique because we haven't seen them before.
Yeah.
But
that's so cool.
you know, there's
Do you know his name?
I can email it to you. I'm just thinking of what it is, but he has you've probably seen it somewhere on your feed because he's got a book out, and it's quite often it's couples, but it's or women that have very unique and theatrical clothing styles that they wear.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, unique.
So when you use the term masters, just so people that are listening to this interview, what exactly does that term mean?
So a master's athlete in most sports is anybody over 35. Some it's over 30, or in swimming, I believe it's even, you can be a master's athlete over 25. But what it is it's people who are no longer competitive, say, Olympic athletes might choose to be master's athletes as they get older, because there's a certain point where they don't compete in the mainstream seniors, like regular Olympics anymore, because whatever the sport they did has a lifespan of a certain age group that's highly competitive, and then once they get beyond that, they're not as competitive. So those people might choose to come back to that. There's a number of people that do weightlifting that I've seen that I'm sure that they were part of the Olympics when they were 20, and now they're 80 and they're still competing.
Wow.
So I think it's a lot of it. What it is it's athletes starting that were competitive in some sport when they were younger and want to continue. So they've continued on as they've gotten older. I think women in weightlifting in particular, that's just exploding because of CrossFit, as well as up until probably about 20 years ago, women were not part of the World Masters weightlifting game, the competitions or the Pan American Masters weightlifting competitions. It was strictly men. Wow. And it's, even though women did it, it was it's been more recent that women have been included in that.
So what is the oldest age that you have seen at the Masters or the Pan Am Games?
So, well, in New Zealand, there were probably 13 men that were over 80 years old. Wow. That were competing in weightlifting.
Wow.
And I compete with women that are 65 to 69. And I have a bunch of friends that I've just made in the last year who compete in the 70 plus. For women, they just have 70 plus, but most of them are between 70 and 80.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see.
That's incredible.
And a number of them have just started. I didn't start competing until I was 62. One of my friends, I think she's 71 or 72, didn't start until she was 67.
That's incredible. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a really loud and clear message here that it is not too late for people to start. Maybe they're not going to go into Olympic weightlifting and go compete around the world, but it's not too late to start at any time.
That's so true. And, like I know you do running, and it's kind of the same thing. Like you can start that at any age.
Yeah.
And take it wherever you want to take it. There's so many people that do triathlons and things like that now. I have a friend in the States that I met through a common interest on Instagram, and she does these mini tries all the time. She was sort of in the same situation as me. She's about a year younger than me, but she cycles, she swims, she runs, and she's added all those things together, and that's like an integral part of her life now. And that's just where she's gone with it.
I think that it really is a great way to age, because I think for people that are at home, you know, there's a real social element to exercise as well, whether it be weightlifting in a gym or a triathlon or swimming, whatever it might be, walking groups. It doesn't have to be what we perceive as extreme fitness. There's a real social element to it. And I think as we are getting older, having interests and being involved and creating a mind body experience where we're using the proprioceptor paths to our body, it really keeps the brain healthy. It keeps us socializing. It keeps us engaged, and it keeps us connected. And I think there's so much benefit that joining anything, Tai Chi, whatever it might be, can bring to your life. And as you continuously say, and we keep hearing about all these different age people, it really is never too late.
Yeah, and like, absolutely. I think that part of what we kind of forget is that when your body is healthy and you feel good on the outside and on the inside, your life just changes to be better all around. You know, you can have extraneous things happening in your life, but when you feel confident in your core, and I don't necessarily mean your abs, like just in your core being, that you know, that things change. So I know for myself, like once I started regularly going to the gym, my mental health changed.
Totally.
You know, people that get to that point where their family has grown up and they're thinking like, what's left for me now? Like this the end, you know, there's nothing left for me to do. Well, that's so not true.
Yeah.
But it also, like, your mental and your physical health change so dramatically. You know, I look at weightlifting as my thing that I love, but man, I go in that gym and I'm there for an hour working out, and I walk out of there and I think, oh, well, that's like meditation to me. Yeah. I didn't think about any other stuff because I was concerned about every time I did a movement that I was doing it correctly. It happens to be a very technical sport. So in order to do it, you do have to pay attention if you don't want to hurt yourself. You know, and most things, you know, from running, like, yeah, you have to kind of watch what you're doing. But on the other hand, it's like that endorphins that you get and the kind of mind sense that's just letting you sort of just get in the flow of things and not be so concerned about all these other things that are going on in your life or not. You know, you're so focused on what you're doing that it actually is calming and relaxing, even though you're working hard.
Well, one of the things that you said just a moment ago that really struck me is, you know, when your kids do leave, assuming you have kids, or like maybe you retire from a job and you're feeling like, what's left for me? That is kind of, this could be the perfect time to really focus on you, because so many of us go through careers and families and it's all about the output and very little time for the input. And there doesn't have to be this lonely negative space. It could be the most rich time in your life for you to actually thrive. And like, what are the things that I like? Who are the people I want to be with? What are the activities I want to do? And really step into that. So it doesn't have to be this lonely place.
Yes, and that's actually part of why I got involved with this new little company that I have. That I keep saying little. I'm hoping it's going to be huge because the message is huge. That so many of us, we spent all our time looking after our families, or our families and our work, or just our work, but we didn't take the time to really look after our own physical and mental health. And a lot of times that's, you know, like, it's not just like getting a manicure and pedicure and spending that me time. It's like really truly looking after you and what you need and what you want. And so that's, you know, I know that because of what I'm doing, and it's kind of an oddity, I don't look like an athlete. I'm just this regular 65-year-old lady that with gray hair that definitely I know does not look like an athlete, but I can assure you I am. And you know, I think I know that that's inspiring to some people. And what's allowed me to do is connect it with women who particularly are over 55, going through menopause and all the changes that have happened to you through that period of time, not sleeping well, not eating well, putting on weight when you never did before, losing weight when you never did before, things that just your body is adjusting, and how you can sort of make your life the best life you could have. And I think we sort of get into this whole rut of thinking that life is over now that our families are grown up and things are changing. And really, I just, you know, helping people make strategies for change of what you can look about. What is your story of why you've never done this, or what do you feel you're obligated to do, which perhaps you aren't really obligated to do. Maybe it was a story that someone in your family told you that this is the way it needed to be, when in fact it doesn't really need to be that way.
It's funny that you say these stories, because I do a lot of that in my coaching as well. Is like we have these stories, and we also have these stories, as we discussed earlier, just about what society is saying, like, you know, if you're older, it's over, or you can't do certain things, or if you're larger. But those can go right back into our family of origin, where our role models may have told us those stories, and that's deep-rooted stuff. And so a lot of fitness coaching, don't you find, is people like, okay, this is what you got to do. You got to go to the gym 3 times a week. You got to follow this plan, blah, 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 blah. And like, really, I think what you're doing in your coaching, which is fantastic, and what I also do, is really look at the underbelly of what, like, it's not just the semantics of movement and nutrition, it's what's happening underneath. Why are you limited?
You really have to pull everything together to make yourself be healthy. And you know, it's like I said before, when I was in the gym, like, that's a huge thing for a lot of people, that other people are judging you, when in fact they really aren't. You know, well, there's always going to be people that are judging someone else, but the majority of people really aren't. They're just there doing their thing, trying to improve themselves. And I think if we take that away, that story that, you know, you're being judged, then that helps you to make some changes.
Well, judgy people are going to judge you at the grocery store. They're going to judge you at the car dealership. You know, they're going to judge you at, you know, judgy people are going to judge no matter where you go. So
it's true.
I think that there's a real stigma around fitness, but I think there's a lot of fear around fitness. So people really fear the judgment walking into those spaces. But I think my experience has been, and maybe because I'm not so conscious or caring about the judgment, is that it's quite usually a welcoming space in most cases. I mean, I've had a lot of presumptions made about me. Here's the lighter weights, here's the lighter bands, you don't have to run if you can't, you know, those types of things that are a result of kind of a biased society. But I don't typically feel judged. And there are people that will judge, like you said, but they're going to judge you no matter where you go.
Yeah.
And I think that really we can't let those people take away our power. Really, like, if you can walk in and rise above that, because you're there for you. You're there to for your own benefit. So if we let the haters or the judgy people win, then they've won, right? They've taken away our power.
Yeah, and I think that's also, I just made that decision for myself that I was going to do it, and I wasn't going to worry about what anybody else was saying or doing. But I think a lot of people need that help, to have someone look at it with them and say, you know, this is the story that you're telling yourself. And what if that wasn't true? What if it was something different? What would that look like? And people do need that help, and particular people that haven't felt confident about going out for whatever reason to a gym, or getting out running, or whatever they want to do, going to a yoga class, just not feeling comfortable around other people doing something because they're unsure about what it would be like. You know, that's quite often the biggest part, is just not knowing what it's going to be like, and the anticipation of thinking that it might be different than it actually is. And then once you've done it, it's like, oh, well, that was actually pretty easy, and look at all those nice people I've met. You know, it's particularly when you do a class, because everybody's, you know, pretty inclusive that way. And I think that's people sometimes just need that help to get over that hump of understanding that, you know, pretty much you can do whatever you want, and if you try.
You know. Where are you heading next?
Well, I was going to Winnipeg at the end of May for the the Canadian Masters, but we've had to cancel that because, of course, of COVID-19. I'm still hopeful that the Pan American Masters will be happening. I'm retiring from my day job on the 15th of May, and the next week I'm planning on flying to Puerto Rico to do the Pan American Masters competition for weightlifting. So keeping my fingers crossed that will still be happening. And then the World Masters will be in Orlando in August. So those are my two sort of direct things that I'm going to do. And also building my business and getting out and talking to people about making changes in their life, and doing some public speaking in different places. So
that's incredible.
Kind of where I'm going.
Very incredible, very inspiring. So if anybody is listening here that would like to work with you or get in touch with you, where can they find you?
I have a website called liftyouupcoaching.com. I also have an Instagram, which is Lift You Up Coaching. You can also find me on Instagram at BeastMode Grandma, but I kind of have that connected over to my Lift You Up Coaching one. And then I'm also on Twitter as Lift You Up Coaching.
Nice.
So you can find me in any of those places, and I'm happy to talk to anyone. I actually have on my website, I have an intake form which I printed off and used at a health show that I was at, and just gave out because it's got some really awesome questions for people that are sort of undecided about what's going on in their life. And it's great for anybody to look at. So if you want to check that out and just have a look at what the intake form is, when I do a discovery call with people, I ask them to fill that out beforehand so that they've sort of clarified what they want and I can see what they're looking at. But you don't have to fill it out online. You can just look at the questions. It's just like, what are you really happy with in your life, and what do you feel you're lacking? And a few questions like that, it just gets you kind of thinking about what do you need to change or not change at all. So that's
sometimes people just know that they're unhappy, and they're without the discovery or the coaching that you provide, they feel stuck and lost. And I think that a good coach like you are really unearths that, and somebody that's gone through the process. So I think it's really valuable services. Thanks.
And, you know, as much as I totally advocate doing Olympic weightlifting because it's pretty awesome and incredibly empowering to be able to lift these weights, the fact is that any kind of movement is huge. And, you know, as we get older, bone density is a huge, important thing for us to be able to be healthy as we age. And anything that you do that helps that along is important. for sure.
So I would think that your services would be really great for people that don't really consider themselves aging population. Do you work with all
Yes.
ages?
Yep, I work with all ages for sure,
Yeah.
and men as well as women, but primarily with women, and women that are sort of like, say, 50 plus
Yeah.
seems to be the ones that sort of relate most to what I've gone through, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think when we're 50 plus, I'm approaching that. Um, it's kind of a new chapter for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
That is the time when people's kids are moving on, or in my case, just not needing me as much, right? And it
Yeah.
opens up it opens up this space where I think it's really cool that you help people navigate that, because it is a time of transition.
For sure. And certainly as people go through menopause, it's such, like things that you did successfully all your life, what you ate, what you did, your body is saying, well, throw that out the window, because now we're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
And, it surprises a lot of people that, the way they ate, all of a sudden they're still gaining weight, or they're losing weight and they're like desperate, like what's going on? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different variables that happen when people go through menopause, and everybody goes through it differently,
Mm-hmm.
that it affects so much of our hormonal balance, that just being able to look at that and help people navigate that a little bit is so helpful as well.
I recently saw my doctor, and she said, you're really doing it right for preparing for menopause, because exercising through it can really help. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's scientifically found or if that was just an opinion, but she said if you can exercise through it, a lot of people seem to navigate it with a bit more ease.
Yeah, and
I know
that's
it's different
true.
for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's really true. But, again, it is absolutely different for everybody.
Everyone.
So, if you're fortunate, you get through it in a fairly smooth manner. Other people really struggle. So, the more you can do to help yourself, the
Yeah.
better, for sure.
Well, thank you for talking to us. So again, it's liftyouupcoaching.com,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
BeastMode Grandma on Instagram, as well as Lift You Up
Coaching
on Instagram. Thank you, Sue, so much for giving us your time.
Oh,
I
you're more than
am
welcome.
incredibly inspired. I hope that the virus situation resolves itself so that you can get to Puerto Rico and show the world what you've got. Otherwise, I know you'll be doing that in the future. I personally have been direct messaging you looking for weightlifting advice, which you've been really, really open with me and giving me pointers there as well. I appreciate that very much. I know that if you follow Sue, if you reach out to her, you won't be disappointed. She's greatly inspiring and has a lot of knowledge. So I just want to thank you again for joining us, and hope everyone stays safe and healthy out there while we still navigate the COVID-19 situation. Thank you. Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.